Today we're back over here at our rooster coop because I got my handle to be able to latch this good and even lock it if we want to. So put it in through here and have it twist and catch on the side there. It'll be much more secure than just this, and it should keep all coons and other predators out of there without any worries. So this was really simple. I've discovered I really like these door handles for shed doors. So we just turn it and it's perfect. Gotta keep an eye on the rooster in there. I just gave him some grit. He's pretty excited. He's calling the other ones in. But yeah, this just turns and catches on the frame of the door. And so it's perfect. And we made it nice and tight. And so nothing's getting in that door. It doesn't move at all. It's perfect. Our next project for today is to fix this. So we had that hydrant put in, which is wonderful, but it tore up just this corner of the garden here. You can see the rows and then the mesh. So we're gonna put that back together. I've got some helpers with shovels. Okay, so this is the first green in our garden. This is our garlic, and we plant it in the fall, grow it over the winter, and harvest it probably around July. So it's really fun to see it up. This will hopefully be my first successful year of growing garlic, and we've got this whole row's worth of it. We also have mostly got this corner of the garden back. We need to add some new mulch in the rows, and we will add a little bit of compost before we plant these rows as well. But I'm glad to have it back, and I'm glad to have my new hydrant. My next project is to cut back all this asparagus. We love our patch of asparagus. It's one of the first things we get to eat out of the garden every spring. Normally, this is also full of weeds, but this year we kept up with it really well. We mulched it really deep. So this is all asparagus tops that I have to cut back. Okay, so I got most of it done. Definitely the worst part, but my timer's going off. I have to go take my bread out of the oven, and I have to work on supper. So this is gonna have to wait to be finished until probably tomorrow. Just that part left, and that's our newest expansion on our bed, so it won't take long to finish that up. I'm gonna have to haul all this off so it doesn't just blow right back on there. But I feel pleased with what I got done here. Okay, we're back over here with our roosters, and we have our automatic light sensored door that will open and close for us so that I don't have to be afraid of getting over here in time to get these chickens shut in at night, or I don't have to worry about having forgotten because of where we are. There's too many predators to accidentally leave it open and get away with these guys still being safe. So we're going to install this door. Okay, so we got our chick cozy door up, and then we backed off to see if the roosters would use it, and sure enough, all three went in their coop, and Colin here has come back out. And we set the light sensor, we set a delay. Hopefully it'll work just fine. Unfortunately, we probably can't check tonight because we have church. We might peek at it before we go. But thankfully it doesn't scare them, and they'll go in just fine. So I went to visit my almost 96-year-old grandpa, and while I was gone, our new fruit trees arrived in the mail. They came from Georgia, and so one variety of peach tree is completely leafed out. I see life on one of these. The rest seem fairly dormant. We're still getting temperatures in the low 20s at night and chances of snow. So it's not maybe the ideal time, but since most of them still look dormant, we're going to go ahead and get them in the ground so their roots don't dry out.
Why did I take you on close to see a tree?
So I've got my handy helpers here digging our holes. We have 16 new fruit trees going in what we are calling our fruit orchard. We have 5 apple trees from last year. 2 got attacked by the deer before we got fences up around them. Yeah, we're putting in pear trees, peach trees, more apple trees. And we also have 2 walnut trees that won't be going in this location, but we also have to plant them. So here we go. While it snows outside, I am starting some more seeds. I will give you a rundown of all the seeds that I've started so far and their progress and any problems that I've had. Haven't started a lot. And this tray here, I'm going to be starting some of my herbs. I have cilantro, basil, holy basil, and parsley. That's going to go in this tray here. So this is my seed starting setup behind me, and I'm going to walk you through what I have. It's not a perfect setup, but it seems to work okay. Okay, so I have these trays, or these shelves here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 shelves, and then we make use of the top 2, so 5 shelves. And then I have zip tied these grow lights underneath each shelf, and they are not adjustable, so they're stuck up there. I can't lower them down to my plant's height, but I can raise my plants up, which I do sometimes with extra bases, or down here you'll see with some soil bags. I don't know, my plants don't seem to hurt too much from the light issue. I do sometimes get leggy seedlings as they sprout. So I'm still working on figuring that out, but I don't think it's the light issue. They also get this south-facing window, which is really helpful. And then I have this fan hooked here on the edge of the table that blows on the bottom 2 shelves. And so I just rotate my plants so that they all get the fan at some point to help make them have stronger stalks on them. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off the grow lights right now because the color makes the plants actually look kind of yellowy and sickly when they're not. So I'm going to turn it off, and then we'll talk about what we have planted already. Okay, this tray is kind of an experiment. I have a cold frame outside, and I usually use it to harden off some of my cooler weather crops, but I'd really like to learn how to grow some lettuce and greens in there much earlier in the spring. So I started some different types of lettuce and some Swiss chard, and some of these are going to go in my cold frame, and then the rest, as soon as I think it's warm enough, I'm going to plant into the garden and put row cover over them. And I'm just experimenting with spring planting and how soon I can start stuff without a greenhouse. But these are looking really great, and I think they're ready to be planted out as soon as I feel like the temperatures are warm enough. Okay, I do have 4 different trays of plants in the allium family. They all have different things in them. These are shallots, which is the first time for me to grow those. These are spring onions, so they'll be planted in these little cells, and we won't separate them, and they will be some of the first onions we get to harvest. And then I have 2 trays of bulbing onions as well, and they look similar to these trays. Okay, these are peppers, and I don't usually start my peppers this early, but they always feel like they just take so long to get going, and it always freezes before we've gotten even half the peppers off of them. So I'm starting some earlier, and then I'll also probably start some later. I'm not always the best at keeping my seedlings alive long enough to get them into the garden, so I'm just gonna hedge my bets and plant more for insurance, but so far these are looking really well. This is spinach that I planted a long time ago, and I had poor germination, and then they just didn't seem to grow forever. And they do have some true leaves on them, and so pretty soon, it's probably with the lettuce, I'm going to put some out in the cold frame, some under row covers, and see if maybe they'll grow a little bit more. You can see they're also really leggy, so when I do plant them outside, I'm going to bury this stem up to at least that point there. And I don't know, we'll see if we can do well with these. I've only ever direct sowed spinach, but it gets warm here sometimes so fast. Last year in May we had 90-degree weather for a couple days. All my spinach bolted, so this is an attempt to get it started earlier. We'll see how it goes. Next up is my tray of kale, and I have 4 different types of kale. The scarlet kale was old seed, and I had really poor germination. It's a beautiful kale plant that I had last year, but they just, only 3 of them germinated, so not very good, but the rest of them look pretty good. And kale is a cold-loving plant. It actually fares well all throughout the summer and into the fall. So I wanted to plant lots of kale. I like it in soups. Also is good in smoothies or dried out, and so it doesn't hurt to have more kale. The chickens also love it, so great food for them. Next up here is my celery, and if I only had these cells right here, I would say it looks pretty good. But as you move on this way, we do not have good germination, and it's my understanding that celery is very hard to germinate, so it's not really abnormal, but you can see how far advanced these are, and then you can see some, they're just coming up. So I've not given up hope that the other ones will come up, but I did add a few more seeds to some of the empty cells today. I'd really like to fill this up, even if they're at different phases in their growth. I grew celery for the first time last year, and I was so pleased with how well it did. So I'm giving it a go again this year, trying to grow a little bit more. I'd like to freeze a lot of it this year to use into the winter. So we'll keep an eye on this. They've been planted a long time. They take up to 3 weeks to germinate. So yeah, the ones that are germinated, they're already, I don't know, 5 or 6 weeks old. So hopefully we can get some of these others coming as well. Lastly, we have the trays that I just started today. And so I think this is the one you'll watch me with my herbs. This one has some more Swiss chard and kale. And then it also has some Brussels sprouts and some of my cabbages. So those are cold weather crops. The Brussels sprouts take forever to grow. I'd like them to be ready in the fall, but last year that was not successful. So I'm going to plant them really early, and then I'll try again in May to start some more for fall. I'd really like to succeed at growing that. And then the last thing I started today was a tray of tomatoes. And this is way earlier than I usually start my tomatoes. I don't usually like to up pot them, but this year I am going to attempt starting them earlier and up potting them as they grow. Today, I took the opportunity of a really nice day. I think it almost got up to 70 today, and it's supposed to snow tomorrow. And so I took the opportunity to prune 2 of our biggest apple trees. Not the new ones we planted, the ones that we planted probably 12 or 13 years ago. One is bigger than the other, and I didn't film it because it's so hard to see on camera what you're pruning. Ultimately, apple trees are supposed to be pruned to a central leader, And we didn't know that when we started pruning apple trees so many years ago. And so we prune these just like we would peach trees, with kind of a bowl shape and an open center. It works. It's not naturally what apple trees want to do, so you're kind of fighting it. And we've kind of got one branch going up there in the middle, maybe to kind of try to change it. But it works. Ultimately, we just want room for air. We don't want crisscrossing branches. I topped a lot of them so that we can hopefully reach them all when there's apples on it. We hope we get apples again this year. It was the first year of the 12 or 13 years we've had it that it produced, so we never really know what to expect. There's a car coming, just a minute. Okay, and this apple tree, I moved over to the next one. It's right next door to the first one. It's a little bit smaller, and I hear you're only supposed to prune maybe up to 1/3 of the branches. My daughter thinks I pruned a little more than that. I don't really think so, because it was already a smaller tree, and we did our best. There may be some more pruning. My husband normally helps me, and we kind of talk about which branch we should keep and which one we shouldn't, so maybe he'll come out here with me when he's not working, and we might take a few more branches off, depending. Ultimately, doing some pruning is great, because if you get 2 years behind the pruning, it can be a pretty serious job the next year. We went 2 years without one time, and then we had to use a chainsaw for some of it. So I'm happy with what I've got done. We've still got a peach tree that we definitely have to prune. Our cherry tree we hardly ever prune, so we've almost got the tree pruning done. Our little ones we planted last year don't really need, maybe we'll look at them, but since they got attacked by the deer, I don't even know if they're going to make it. So we may prune some, we may not. Okay, and then you saw us put this together. I have been so excited for this garden cart. Last year, every time I would take my produce out to my stand in the kids' plastic wagon, drove me crazy. The wheels have never worked right on that thing. It was too small for my coolers. My coolers had to sit in it tipped. So then the produce sometimes would slide around in the cooler, which is not good for things like tomatoes and strawberries and things like that in there. And so I used some of the money from the farm stand to buy this garden cart. It holds 1,200 pounds, which is really cool. I doubt I'll ever have that much weight in here, but we are excited. The sides can come down or come off, and that is really exciting. Of course, I'm sure the kids will have fun rolling around in it, pulling each other around. And so we're really excited to have this garden cart for all sorts of things, moving produce around and bringing our seedlings out to the garden. It's just going to be so handy, and I'm really excited to have this. So thanks to all my customers who made this possible for me. Okay guys, the craziest thing I'm really excited about. This raised bed I planted last fall with spinach in hopes to get a fall crop. But then we got really cold temperatures, and I'm just like, there's no way they survived. I'd covered them and I just assumed they'd be dead, and I didn't check them again. And so just now I'm out walking around seeing the daffodils up, and I thought I'd peek at them. I have to show you what I found. You see that, guys? That is so crazy. I overwintered spinach and I didn't even know it. So here I'm like, I have to get my spinach out. I want a spring crop, and it's all here. It's all here, ready to go. Just waiting. That is so amazing. Also a really exciting discovery that I can overwinter spinach. I just can't believe it. So I'm gonna have to keep it covered because it's supposed to snow tomorrow, and we have lows, I think, down to 12 degrees, and that's too cold. So I'm gonna keep it covered and see how it does. That's so cool.